Hey guys, got a few horror stories for you today. So, a while back, I was part of this year-long 5e campaign with a group of friends, and we were stoked to be on an epic adventure. But little did we know, we were about to encounter a player who would turn our game into a bizarre Death Grips nightmare. This player, who we'll call MC Ride, because that's what he insisted on being called, was obsessed with the band Death Grips to a whole other level. From the get-go, he made it clear that his character, a noble bard, was the embodiment of Death Grips' lyrics and persona. I mean, he even included himself by saying,
"I'm a noble, so you can call me the Lord MC Ride, biatch."
It's as cringe as it sounds. Now, in social situations, both in and out of character, MC Ride would interject Death Grips lyrics randomly, always at an aggressively loud volume. So picture this. We're negotiating with a group of king's nobles, trying to find a diplomatic solution with the king, and out of nowhere, he would blurt out,
"Fuck the man with hips for Hulu."
We all stared at him in disbelief, wondering what the heck just happened. It was like a train wreck. You couldn't look away. But it didn't stop there. As a bard, when he attempted to be charismatic, or even when he played music, he would start yelling obscenities like,
"I fuck the music, I make it cool."
I kid you not. This guy was dead serious about it. It was a cringe fest that would make even the most seasoned RPG players question their life choices. As the campaign progressed, and every bardic inspiration given being accompanied by something like,
"I light my torch and burn it. I am the beast I worship."
Except the dude is actually screaming into the mic. We all tried to talk to him, explaining that his constant interjections were disruptive and making everyone uncomfortable, but he just brushed it off, being super serious and claiming that it was all part of his character's authenticity. It was like dealing with a brick wall, except this brick wall was angrily screaming Death Grips lyrics in your face. Eventually, this became too much for the rest of us, and we decided to end the campaign prematurely. We couldn't take his incessant Death Grips obsessions anymore. The game was supposed to be an immersive experience, not a cringe-inducing concert of inappropriate lyrics and aggressively awkward role-playing moments. So heed my warning. Be careful who you invite to your RPG campaigns. Sometimes, the line between creativity and overzealous obsession can blur, and you might find yourself knee-deep in a perverse Death Grips nightmare that you never asked for. May your future RPG adventures be free from such horrors, and may the dice forever roll in your favor. Stay safe out there, and remember, not every bard needs to make the music come. Well guys, quite frankly, not much to say on this one. They could have kicked this guy and found a replacement and been all the much more happy for it. If you got a bad player, friend or not, get rid of them. Especially if they're being disruptive for no particular reason or because they find it funny. If a person doesn't meld with the group, they don't. And if they can't handle being removed from the group for these reasons, then are they really that good of a friend? But that's the end of this one. On to the next. This story has primarily 3 relevant people. Myself, the forever DM, Adam, and Eve. I have a dedicated group of 4 friends who have been gaming together since the 80s, and Adam has been with us the entire time, even as our gaming has grown more sparse with the demands adult life makes on our time. Adam met Eve, and she wished to sit in on our game night. After watching a few sessions, she asked if she could play. It's always good to add more depth, so of course we said yes. And for the next 8 years, we gamed Star Wars, The Walking Dead, D&D, and a good time was had by all. And just before the pandemic, I got the Alien RPG. I love the series, and some of the players do too. So I workshopped a game set on a space station. One of the players is a true crime junkie, so the plot would be a murder investigation into a real murderer that crossed paths with an alien. I read up on serial killers and decided to have the human be more of a typical killer of vulnerable women, the poor, disenfranchised, and etc. We spoke about the campaign, laid out the very adult themes that would be presented to make certain everyone was aware and could veto content, and everyone was cool. so I started building. I asked Adam, one of the better role players, if he secretly wanted to be the murderer, and he leapt at the idea. Everything was all set and ready, and then the whole world shut down. Months later, we finally decided to try doing the game over Zoom. The group started playing, but there was something subdued about the way Adam was playing. I figured it was probably due to the fact that we were all in different places and looking at screens and trying hard not to talk over one another. It was fairly chaotic and hard to keep looking down at little video frames. After the session, he asked if we could change the story so that he wasn't really the killer. I assumed it was because he had realized that talking about it was different than actually playing it out, but I was wrong. It turned out that his wife had cheated on him and they were headed for a divorce. And he was so angry about it that he didn't really feel like he was in the right headspace to play a woman-hating murderer. I, of course, cancelled the game, and Eve was angry. She was adamant that everyone could get along and play the game, but it was one of the most awkward conversations that I've ever had in my life. She honestly believed that we could just carry on as though everything was fine, and when I wouldn't budge, it got ugly. I received texts and emails harassing and insulting me. She even used the dark storyline planned for the Alien game to try and claim that I was targeting her specifically with content designed to upset an attacker. Something she tried to take to her lawyer to show that Adam had been emotionally abusive. I was furious, but also relieved that I had an audio recording of most of my sessions. It's easier than taking notes, and I can go back and listen to RP conversations players had while I was doing something on the side with another player. So yeah, I had to be deposed because I refused to run a game for my friend's ex-wife. Well guys, I don't really have much to say on this one other than really the fact that, of course, the ex-wife is going to play the blame game and pretend to be the victim when they were the one that was in the wrong. It's a very classic tactic that it obviously works every time flawlessly. And that's the end of this one. On to the next. So, where do I even begin? A friend of mine was running a level 6 one-shot, and the party consisted of myself, who is playing a elf chronergy magic wizard, and 2 other friends, a fighter and barbarian. The premise was that we ended up in the Feywild, following an orphan girl that went missing, and so we had to protect her while searching for a way out. Everything was smooth sailing. A couple of fun encounters, and some environmental puzzles later on, and we eventually got to the court of the Fairy Queen. And this is where things got complicated. We found out that several dozen people are held hostage because the fairies feed on their dreams, and the Queen asked us to give up the girl and return home. Now, knowing how much of a jerk fairies can be, my first instinct was to fireball the crap out of her, since there was no way of knowing whether or not she would actually let us out, and I asked my friends if they were okay with it. The fighter asked me to wait, since he wanted to make a deal with the Queen. He proposed that we should leave the girl temporarily, and attempt to exchange the prisoners with people who deserve to be trapped in the Feywild forever. Since the Queen happily accepted, I asked her if I could take the place of the orphan, since our only goal from the beginning was to get her out of here. In that moment, the barbarian said in real life that he wanted to make a stealth check to tie my hands and mouth and bring me out of the Feywild. He failed, and the DM said that we should probably roll for initiative, and the fighter made clear that he was on the barbarian side. We started combat, but since I didn't want to hurt them, I simply asked,
"Well, can't we talk this out?"
before being beaten into submission. Once we were out of the Feywild, I asked again why they wouldn't let me stay there, to which they replied that I was just a valuable asset, which I think is just a stupid excuse. Anyway, the DM made it clear that since we never asked the Queen to tell us the truth, she wasn't going to respect the fighter's deal, and we were locked out of the Feywild forever. One shot's over. Now, I also want to make it clear that these 2 jerks are still some of my closest friends, and I'm not going to let D&D shenanigans influence what I think about them. But please, never start a fight without talking it out first. Well guys, think about what your character dynamics are, and think about the potential consequences of what your actions will be. But that's it for this one, so as always,